the show has started. We wanted to give people a little update on some of our diehard hard fans. We crossed 50,000 views for
Wow.
our last episode, which is pretty insane. And that was with Rad from intro. Pretty insane traction from a start podcast that started with just some idiots that have raised some money. But we really appreciate everybody that tunes in every single week.
Kevin has told me if we get to 150,000 episodes of listener, he's going to tattoo it on his cheek. So let's get there, everyone.
You did say that.
And not
Sarah's gonna.
Yeah, I'm gonna not get a tattoo, but not only did like Rad coming on, blow this podcast out of the water. We're like up to people were tweeting us as one of the main podcasts they listen to now, but it also got me a lot of intro bookings. So I was like blowing up with intro bookings last week. That's why I have no voice. I have a cough drop now because it was just, I was talking to so many people thanks to Rad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna book you now.
Yeah.
Well, do it. I have so many, like I even had to reschedule one today because I have like no voice and I need to save it.
And also,
well, folks, if you want to book me, I'm available too. I'm also on intro.
Me too.
You can pay to talk to me.
My price is just very high, so I have yet to
Hold on. Can I just take just a quick segue for a second? I literally did this, but on Clarity, which is what existed at the time.
Yes, yeah.
In order to figure out how to fundraise, I legitimately did do this. I just raised $1.5 million. I was scrambling to raise $6 million. And I called Peter Pham, the guy who runs Science, who I'm sure you guys know, who started Liquid Death. I literally the most expensive people that I could possibly reach out to on Clarity, which is what intro is.
We got to get Peter Pham on the podcast, actually. That is
no investors. No investors. No,
he's not. He's not. He like
really
one of the key geniuses behind Liquid Death, which has grown a crazy. I mean, that is like the biggest marketing success story of all time.
We're at the end.
I vote Peter Pham. I vote get him on. Also, I think startup studio like blends that model. He's not really a VC, so let's get him on.
He is like a hardcore operator. Mm-hmm. That guy is so hardcore. So we should get him on.
Also, we'll tell you the secret on how we got to this big of a viewership. It's really by getting amazing guests on, and then I think some people like us as just kind of our regular listeners, but like the strings that we've all had to pull. I'll tell you. So I got before Rad, who came on, I think, because we got Aaron Levy from Box. I've been emailing Aaron Levy for the last year, like literally, like once a month, and he said, and he was just, you just gotta. And this kind of relates to startups too. It's just perseverance. Just keep going. But that's kind of the part of it. Well, this kind of leads into the next topic that we wanted to try, and I'm in the heart of it, so I'll lead this and then get commentary from you guys. But right now, the fundraising market is still brutal, and so we're a Series A company. We should be a Series B company based on our metrics, but our metrics are out of this world. I couldn't, when I started this company, I couldn't have imagined how fast we're growing, also how much money we actually are making, and also how many customers really love our product, and it's fucking still so brutal out there. So over the last year, because we were looking to raise our Series B, I've probably had no, it's been over it's been like 15 months. Over the last year, I probably had conversations with about 150 people, and that has been with big VCs. It's been literally, I've been taking meetings with anybody out there, and still the market is just so tough. I will say, and I'll even announce it on the show, We just signed a term sheet. And
Congrats.
literally this week, and this is kind of a learning for everybody listening. And I just started pumping it out to other people to fill up the round. So we have a lead, we have terms, we have everything. And I just pumped it out last night, and we have over a third of it already committed. And I already have some other investors that probably are going to fill up a lot of the remaining of the round. Also, if you want to participate in it, hit me up on DMs, because that's still how hard it is. Even though that we have metrics that I don't see any other company out there having, but it's really tough. I will also say, and this is a path that not a lot of startups go through, but if you have some decent net revenue, the venture debt market out there is red hot.
It is.
I'm getting
That's true.
way more interest for venture debt, which typically is looked upon as not a great way to finance. So how venture debt works is it's obviously debt. You have to pay it back. They will get their money back before anybody else does. So it's less risky for them. But if you have really good traction, and also net revenue is really been the big thing. But since the collapse of SVB, there is blood in the water, and there's a lot of firms that are trying to go and just scoop that up. Also, I think SVB has been, they've been a great banking partner to us, but since they got bought out, their venture debt is really, it's a lot more strict, and so it's a lot harder to get that done. And so, I'd really, if you do have some good, and I'm talking net revenue, and you have good economics, and you should really look at that as a path right now. I don't know if anybody wants to share their fundraising stories.
Like, to put you kind of on the hot seat, since we've got a little bit of the behind the scenes of how this fundraise has gone. And I know it's like, when I talk to founders, it's the number one thing they ask me, like, how do you really fundraise? Like, how do you build that kind of FOMO and momentum and get that first term sheet? Because that first term sheet is everything. Can you share, like, were there any techniques that, obviously you had stellar metrics and you have a great company and business, so you have the prerequisites, but what techniques like got you that term sheet?
Really, and I've asked everybody on this podcast here, I think the best is to get other founders to intro to their VCs. That is the strongest intro that you could get.
You're totally right. But like I in the back channels, because we have back channels, obviously, as every, I like everybody, I'm in a bunch of WhatsApp groups, right? And like the collaboration that occurs in these WhatsApp groups, we're not strangers, right? Having been on this podcast a whole bunch, but even in some of these groups where strangers are talking to each other, there's a collaborative thing that doesn't really occur the same way on Twitter. And so, like, get into these groups.
Yes.
Don't get into our group. You can't. Maybe you can. I don't know. Be on the show, and then maybe. But but otherwise, like, just get into a bunch of groups and just get networking really hard. There's so many people that I talk to that are just super under networked.
Yeah, and it takes time too. It obviously, like, I've been around building venture-backed startups for the last decade. So it's probably, I'd say it's even easier for me, but even this fundraise was so fucking hard. It's just, you got to do whatever you got to do.
The firm that gave you a term sheet, like, how did you get connected with them? Was it through another founder? Was it,
I'm not going to go into exactly who that is, and
you don't have to name names, but like the connection, did it come from?
This was actually an early investor that wrote a $50K check early on, and then it's just been me pumping out just in every single thing that we said that we were going to do. We did, also in a very down market. I think it's really our metrics, and they just continue to see everything that I say that I'm going to do, we do. We've had a lot of learnings, and I think that just taking those small checks is really important. I think that I'm in a little different position. So, and I love Julian to kind of explain the easiest time to raise a round is when the first round, when you don't have metrics, and you've talked about that before. But I don't know if you want to kind of go into
I mean,
that
I'll
at
just
all.
say, this, like when the milestones are very clear, like the milestones are exceptionally clear on SaaS businesses, for example. So when you have that, that's actually like the hardest type of fundraise that you can do if your metrics are not excellent. And so it's because there is a standard that is set. Everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows what the growth rate should be. Everybody knows what the economics should be of everything. And so there's this competition going on in the investor's mind, I think, of like, is this the top quartile or top decile SaaS business? And could my money be used in another SaaS business somewhere else, presuming that that's what they do? If you go into, and I mean, it's, who's the Silicon Valley dude, where it's like such a stereotype. It's like, go to have zero revenue for as long as you possibly can.
Yes,
It's sad, but it's true.
it's
The
true.
more misunderstood your industry, the more weird it is, the more you can ultimately, I want to be super candid about this, like make up milestones. At some point, like this breaks down. Your business has to have comparables. And if you get to a Series B, Series C, whatever, people will start doing, well, what's the comparable to this in a public market? That's what they begin to do.
Yeah.
They say in 5 years, this should be public. So what is it going to look like when investors judge it in the public market? So yeah, there's supposed to be comparable there. But when there is no comparable, that's like where pure storytelling can thrive.
Yeah,
Right?
the seed market
And
still is pretty hot, but after
Mhm.
that, I would even say that even if you do have the top decile metrics, it's still, if you're not in a hot industry, so if you're not in AI or you're not in, like, for us, logistics tech, and also unfortunately we've had some companies in our space that, because every investor is looking at like, well, if I put this money in, the company's not profitable, like how are you going to get the next round? So we've had, unfortunately, Convoy, which raised over $1 billion. They went out of business. Flexport is doing extremely poorly right now. Our business is completely different than that, but from an investor's perspective, they just kind of look at the sector and they're just not interested in it. And so that's why even when
Yeah.
you have insane metrics in this environment, typically this is not the case, but in this environment,
it's so true.
sector is
so
important.
It's so true that you have people that have scar tissue about an industry or that see blood in the water in an industry and they're like, I'm fucking out.
Yep.
It's
Well, and I think it goes
That's
even
it.
further. I mean, you basically have the poster childs of this industry, the
Yes.
big fancy investments that the fancy VCs backed. They're blowing up. Right? Every day, Convoy was sold for $15 million. Is that about right?
Yeah, and they raised $1 billion. Yep.
What? They was sold for 15 million? Oh my God.
Every day there's a new headline about Flexport. I have no idea what's
Yeah.
going on over there, but it's just
Flexport-
like consistently in the news.
There was an information article that Flexport is losing $2 million a month off a single deal. So they did this,
Yeah,
did this off of one deal.
It's the Apple deal, is it
yeah.
not?
That's right.
Yeah.
So tell us, Kevin, why is your business different than Flexport?
It's because the prices don't swing like they do in the freight forwarding business. So when you make a percentage off the transaction, so in Flexport's business at the height, they were making 20,000. This is in gross revenue, $20,000 for a single container. They make a percentage of that. I don't know what that is, but when it goes down to 2,000, and they still have like a really high cost to service that container, their unit economics just go like upside down. The same thing that happened with Convoy. And so the difference between us is that we're actually in the shipping markets and fulfillment markets where prices are not that elastic. It's basically it's the same it's the same cost to more or less ship something from one location to another, and it has been for the last 10 years. Of course, the carriers raise their rates, and for us, we just make a percentage off of every shipment, and so that's why it's just different. And these rates are not going to decrease as dramatically as in the freight forwarding business, and so
Right. You
that's
could
why.
see, yeah, it makes sense to me how there would be ebbs and flows. I remember in commercial real estate, it was kind of the same as like ebbs and flows, and you'd have to withstand these 7-year rises and falls in commercial real estate. And if you had never withstood one, by the way, WeWork barely withstood one. Nobody does, right? You'd end up in a situation where the demand and the supply would just completely flip on
Yep.
each other and drastically change price. But I'm shocked that the cost of a container can go from $20,000 to $2,000 or whatever their percentage is. Like
Yeah.
that's a crazy chain.
So
Yeah.
from a fundraising perspective, like, is the strategy to get in front of this and like proactively tell investors, look, we're not like these terrible companies in the logistics space? Or do you kind of deal with that more reactively?
Honestly, a lot of these questions are not even asked, and people just write the industry off.
As in,
And they won't even. They'll still take the meeting because they don't know, they want to build a relationship with me, and who knows what I'll do one day and all of this. But like, I know in the back of their head, they're just like, your sector is not doing well. And the same thing actually goes for SaaS as well, right? Like when we had this big SaaS downturn, all these companies were buying from SaaS companies. So like their metrics are like zero growth for this year because they've had so many people. And so right now, I think SaaS is not a very hot industry to invest in. Multiples are down in the public markets. So it's just, I like to think that we're different than anybody else. And I knew what this market was, and that's why I went into it. And we've consistently shown that our metrics are completely different. But it's just people kind of, if they don't know the industry that well, the ins and outs, they just kind of put it in their head that they don't want to get into it. And that's kind of the opposite on like when you have AI where it's just unknown what is going to happen. And so they'd rather, and this is the whole power law for VCs, they don't know what is actually going to happen to these AI companies. And so they would much rather have a high risk, high reward than, and also people, there's not a lot of VCs that are like specialists in my sector, unfortunately. But I think that's kind of like, if I was a VC, like now would be the time to go and like go against and try to find these other, what's going to be the next AI. I would already argue logistics tech. It's still been untouched. It's one of the biggest industries in the world. But a lot of investors, it's all about FOMO, and there just isn't FOMO in our industry, and also in B2B right now for a lot of companies.
Andy?
So yeah.
I mean, I find this so interesting because your industry is such a tried and true bread and butter industry for private equity. I mean, there are a number of large PE firms that have done significant logistics, distribution businesses. I mean, I think CD&R, this is how they got started. I mean, these are multi-billion-dollar firms, and yet the VC industry doesn't want to touch it. It's just a very strong dichotomy between what's going on in the venture side of things and what goes on in
Yeah.
the private equity side of things. And then I think,
Mhm.
I guess I don't know enough about Flexport to be smart, but K&N is who we used at Nanit way back when, and that's a $40 billion company in freight forwarding, and this massive behemoth of a company. So it's just wild, the dichotomy, and why everyone was not able to make the venture side of the industry work.
Andy,
Lack
is
of
the
interest.
private equity, are there ebbs and flows of private equity as wild as the ones in venture. It seems to me like in venture, so many more things go to zero. So
Yeah.
you're like, your underwriting model is way crazier than in PE companies. Is that kind of directionally correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a zero in a PE deal, it could be a career end. Um,
Mhm.
it's not like venture where it's the expectation of the portfolio. The expectation is everything works, and so it is very different. But it's definitely been a bread and butter industry that generates high free cash flow for PE. So wild to think about that people can't make the business model work on the venture side of thing. Maybe it's growth at all costs doesn't work.
Well, I think PE is also, looking at companies that are further along. You generally have to be profitable or, very close to profitable and an obvious path. And you have to have, you know, like at least 15 million in ARR, which may not be the benchmark to, raise your Series A or even your Series B. So I think the companies that PE is even looking at are very predictable. And then based on the stage of the PE firm, they're trying to
Yeah.
get it from 15 million to 30 million or 30 million to 60 million. They have very clear kind of multiples that are
Mhm.
very reasonable that they're aiming
Yeah,
for.
I totally agree. But and the issue is that venture is looking for that outlier that is going to go
Right.
100x,
Yeah.
and they have to look at it in every deal. And I get it; it evens out. But so it's almost like a founder should be happy when they graduate in the early stage. If they do a deal with a PE firm, it's a bad signal. It's like these people are not going to have the right expectations for this company at this stage, and they don't understand that if they've done this type of transaction. But once you get to Series B, Series C, and you graduated into private equity type companies, sovereign wealth funds, all these other kind of like bigger
Yeah.
$25 million check for whatever amount of the company, these businesses, sometimes you could storytell your way into these types of funds, but once you get to that size of business, it means that there's a consistency that other people believe you will have, which like the business could still go to zero, but it's probably like a real business. So that's like it's like a milestone that founders should want to reach whenever they can, whenever their businesses are ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost like you're seen as not quite as bad as like, oh, I want to run a lifestyle business, but like wanting to sell to private equity or be eligible to sell to private equity is seen as like kind of a failure in the venture world. But I agree. Like, I think it's a huge milestone. It's something that, internally we think a lot about. Like, if we can get really profitable and really interesting for private equity buyers, that's just a really solid internal milestone to reach, whether we take that path or not. So I think it's
Yep.
nothing to be ashamed of. And in fact, I think it's, something to be really proud of, but it just doesn't have that reputation in the venture world.
Spoiler alert, if you actually get really profitable and sell to private equity, you are rich. Like
Right. But
bottom
the other thing is
line.
like you you raise your venture round and like you've just, you know, made it harder to get rich for yourself. Whereas if you raise your private equity round, you take chips off the table generally and you're rich right then and there. So I don't understand why it's so frowned upon to go the private equity route, but I certainly think it's pretty interesting.
Bootstrapping gets a bad name in our industry. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think the historical reason was there was R&D risk versus
Yeah.
business model
Yeah.
risk. And R&D risk is not something that structured capital is good at funding.
Right.
Um, it's interesting, though. I was having this conversation with an entrepreneur earlier this week. And basically, my viewpoint is there are really good industries where everyone is doing well. And there are really bad industries where everyone is doing poorly. The really bad industries, everyone's losing money, everyone has terrible margin structure, nobody's generating free cash flow, tons of people coming in, very low barriers to entry, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's these industries you look at, and everyone's earning really high investments on their really high ROIC. everyone's generating really large free cash flow. It's consolidating or has been consolidated, and everyone's generating a lot of profit. And I'd much rather much rather be a B or C founder in an A industry than be a founder in a B or C industry.
Yeah.
And I guess where I'm going with this, Kevin, is you look around at logistics generally, and outside of the venture side of things, this looks like an A industry. I mean, there are a lot of companies generating a lot of free cash flow.
Yeah, it's good that you say that. That's true. Fortunately, until venture has a consensus view on it,
Exactly. Yes.
he's got to ride it,
Yes.
right? And so he's forced to become, maybe this is good, like net good, like he's forced to become an
I think it is.
operator
It is.
because, and actually I think it's an incredible thing for all the people, a bunch of them I coach, and of course I run a venture-backed business as well at the same time. Like what you've got is everybody here has been tested over the past couple of years. A bunch of people are doing weird rounds that I've seen or I have front row seat for. And some others are blowing past their expectations, but it is making real operators out of people. I don't know if I've been through a version of this before. I know everyone ultimately does, but last time that there was a weird, up and down like this that lasted for this long, I wasn't running a software business.
Try running a hardware business. It puts some hair on your back.
Yeah, I'll pass on the back hair. No, thanks.
All right.
Laser Away, sponsored by Sarah.
Yeah, I do have a lot of experience with that. So,
all right.
Another episode.
What topic was? What topic do we have next?
All right. Who bought a Vision Pro?
Did
Am I the
not.
only
You have one. Yeah. So I had a conversation with my fiance. I was like, is this dumb or smart for me to do this? She's like, it is dumb. And I was like, I don't know. And so I didn't press order. So talk to me about it.
I mean, like, look, you've got a wedding to pay for at the end of this year. Spoiler alert for anyone out there.
Yeah.
So she knows what she's going
market.
for.
Right.
10 years later.
I mean, I look at it like I bought the very first Apple Watch that came out, and because I was building an app for it at the time, and like I had to. And anyway, it sucked. Like it was dumb. I couldn't figure out the use case, and so I just stopped wearing a watch for years. It was actually not up until last year that I bought an Apple Watch again, and I mean, I never take the thing off. It's amazing. It keeps track of my health. It keeps me on track of my exercise. It just told me my resting heart rate has been up for the past week, which makes sense because I've been sick. It's like incredible. And so I almost feel like being an early adopter sort of was like a waste. Like I'd rather let them
I'm
like
with
sort
Sarah.
it out.
I'm with
And
Sarah.
then I will make the investment in the thing when there's the apps for it, when all the use cases are clear. Like why, let someone else do the early adopter work of making this thing useful.
So Sarah, like I used to, when I was much more of a consultant and speaker and quote unquote thought leader, like I would be this person that would get Gen 1 things. And I would have to, here's the thing that I would tell people though, which I'm no longer sure if I agree with. I would say, in order to be able to predict the future, you have to be able to see the present accurately. Now that's a really good pithy statement, really good one. But is it useful for someone who's running a business? I'm not sure that it necessarily is, but is it super fun to see a version of the future that could exist? Absolutely. Andy, you're nodding.
Yeah, I mean, I bought Gen 1 Apple. I'll buy anything Apple sells, basically, except for a HomePod. I have no interest in that. So I bought Gen 1 Apple Watch. I bought Gen 1 iPhone, and I was so curious what Gen 1 Vision Pro was. I don't know what the killer app is yet. What I'm mainly using it for is to surf the internet and watch incredible immersive content. There's not a
What kind of incredible immersive content?
I went to an Alicia Keys concert last night. I'm not an Alicia Keys fan, but you think you are there. That is the best way to describe it. I would pay Apple $100, maybe $150 for that experience over paying $250 for nosebleed seats. It is so lifelike and so real. So that's the plus. And I'm also incredibly curious how the platform develops and what people are going to build on it. So that was just pure intellectual curiosity. I gotta say, though, I've tried using it for work, and every time I join a meeting with my avatar, it's too distracting for the rest of the meeting participants. So I've
Right.
stopped actually using it. So it's about an hour a day I'm using it right now. I don't know what the killer use case is. I can't
Mhm.
decide if I wasted $3,500, but it's very enjoyable. And
If
my
I could
wife
just be
hates it.
candid, you mean the use case is porn. Everybody knows. That's what it is. We're
Have you
just waiting
tried
for that.
that? Have you tried that? Just
Yeah,
again,
So yeah, yeah.
oh,
I'll just say this. I'm super happy to do it. If I had a conversation when like 10 years ago, when like one of these Quest things came out, and someone brought it to the breeder office back in the day when we were like 10, 15 people, and I was using it, and they did the roller coaster, and then somebody put on an X-rated. It was like after hours, and it was I mean, it's crazy. So 100% is going to be the killer use case, one of X number. And it's driven, the internet is driven by people going after weird shit. We just don't talk about it. It's the same way. Well, I used to really say that all of these weird, very successful companies had like a odd dark side.
Yeah.
Like Google has tons of click fraud, right? And Facebook has a bunch of weird disinformation shit. Like you just can't build technology without creating weird shit underneath. That's just a part of how the world works.
The internet is weird. We all know that. There is a group of people who are interested in subcategories across the internet. I don't disagree with you. Aggregates the long tail, and the long tail tends to be bigger than people realize. I think the killer use case will end up being sport. That's what I think it will be a
Oh,
very
true.
big killer use
True.
case for it. I want to see it. So far, there is no Apple immersive content for sports. It is very interesting to work on it or interact with it. It is a 3D canvas. If anyone has seen Minority Report, that's the best way to describe what it's like. You can have your message here, your Safari browser here, and maybe a Word document on the right. And you're going to be able to turn your head and have these permanent 3D canvases. It's sort of if anyone's played with Miro, it's a hyper exaggeration of what a Miro type of experience could become in 3D. And so it's very interesting. I don't know where the platform goes. It's been interesting to see that there hasn't been a lot of content being pumped out in immersive 3D in the 2 weeks it's been live, but I like it. I will buy, as I've said to many people, I buy everything Apple will buy. And I think they'll figure out the use case and they'll lean in on it. I mean, Sarah talked about Gen 1 of Apple Watch. Gen 1 of Apple Watch was not marketed towards health. And I mean, Sarah just basically repeated the product marketing for it word for word today, not realizing that. So I think they will figure out that killer use case, and I'm sure they're getting a lot of data. And my guess, because they released it with a pro moniker, a pro label at the end, they'll end up coming out with an Apple Vision next year for $19.99 that is trimmed down and something worse for the rest of the market. That's a guess. And Gen 3 should probably be amazing.
well, if so, yeah. I mean, I heard like you could potentially watch like live sports, like you were sitting courtside at a basketball game or front row seats at football game. Um, but I was curious if they actually have you actually have to have like the angles filmed of that for it to work. But that would, absolutely, I would buy that in a second if I could do that. And then also I would buy the content on top of it. Like I would buy the NFL Sunday Ticket Apple Pro version where you sit on the 50-yard line and then get to sit, right where they're making the field goal, like whatever there could be like a million upsells. So I feel like they could bring down the cost of the actual device if they're, selling you really immersive content.
Yeah,
And
I think it like tracks basically home theater to some degree. I mean, HD content was around for, I don't know, mid 2000s was the early days of HD content, so like 1080p. And it took a long time before you would get significant amount of carriage on the cable networks with HG in general. The beauty of this is Apple has their own production company. They have their own store, and the pipe is there so that you can actually download it. So a lot of those problems have been solved. Apple's just got to put money where their mouth is and pump out the content and sign those deals.
How stupid are airplanes going to look like now when
Oh,
you're
God.
walking to the bathroom in the dark and there's a bunch of assholes like yourself, Andy, who you know I love. Just like, I don't know if I'm ready for that future. I know it's all going to get smaller, all those other things. I just know if I'm prepped for that future, dude. It's so dystopian. But it's
Ask
not going
me
to feel
in 3
dystopian,
weeks.
right? It's going to feel good. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So you're going to find a path to making it feel good and feel natural and all those things. And they're on that path.
Ask me in 3 weeks. I'll send you the video. I was planning on taking the headset off when I went to the bathroom. Just FYI.
Okay. Yeah, no, I know. I imagine you're walking down the aisle towards the bathroom, and there's a bunch of dudes with Vision Pros. They're all going to be dudes.
I heard a good analogy on Twitter that I definitely agree with. Like I've heard a lot of analogies. Like this is like when the iPhone came out and it's going to change all of our lives. I don't agree with that. I like the other analogy that this is going to be like the iPad, where it's going to be like a cool device, but it's like it's not going to change any of our lives for the foreseeable future until we have contact lenses or something. And it's just I just don't see it really outside of like watching movies, which is definitely different. Like and also let's talk about what happened with the Oculus, right? Like. I would say that that's more or less been like kind of a failure. And they've been building that for a long time. I think the movie use case is really interesting and different. But I don't see this really changing everything. I don't believe this is going to be the next computing device until it could potentially just get in your eyeballs or something.
Well, I mean, I wear glasses every day.
True.
And like no one, I mean, maybe you all notice and call me four eyes behind my back, but like it's just a fixture.
How did you know?
Yeah. Like, and I feel like I look pretty normal out there in the world. So I feel like if they could get it down to something like the glasses I put on every day, it's not dystopian for my kids to see me wearing glasses. And,
Right.
it's just I'm going about my day. You don't know that my kids without it.
Of course, that's true. It's just you're going to find a path to profitability through that, right? From here, with the giant goggles to the form factor that then everybody's going to have one. And so smartphones weren't. You all talked about the Apple Watch. Like I'm a tool. I have every generation up until Gen 8. I bought all of them. Okay, and so like. Was that smart? Definitely not. But there's these people that are going to do that.
Yeah.
And at some point, you're right. Like around version 3, version 4, they were like, this is a health device. And they were clear about that.
So
and iPhone 3, iPhone 4, like right around there, they were like, oh, this is now really working. So there's a version of that you hit at some point. I kind of feel like iPads will never hit it, to tell you the truth.
I agree.
It's just like you have one, but who cares? But then again, there's hundreds of millions of them out there, and what the hell do I know?
Let's give some advice to founders, right? I think like Andy talked about, like or we'd all kind of talked about like you need to get into these technologies early on. I could definitely relate exactly to that. So I bought, and this was when, this is so long ago now. When did the iPhone come out? It was 2008.
2008.
So I at the time I didn't really I can't remember what phone I had, but I bought an iTouch and which was very similar, and I started like that basically kicked off my entire career. I started making apps for it and was a developer, and it essentially like led me to where I am now, building companies. And so do you think that this has, but also you have to have enough users to like build those companies and those companies to work for? Do you think, and leave it up to anybody, like, do you think that it is for far, it's close enough that you should be buying one of these things and start making applications for it right now.
So, Kevin, I think you're right. It is a good, from a perspective of a listener, you're right. Platform shifts make people's careers, right? For me, just have
for
just
me.
the iPod. For you, I know for sure, for everybody, if you go through a platform shift and you ride it the right way, kind of nothing you ever need to do right ever again sometimes.
Yeah, I think if the platform shift takes off, it's a home run. You want to it's first to market. And first mover advantage, we've talked about this a lot, can be a very big plus, or you could end up like MySpace.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's an interesting question. How fast will this market develop? How fast are we? I mean, AR VR for founders has probably been the trough of sorrow for the last, I don't know, 5 years, 3 years. Besides that weird metaverse era of 2021 to 21 to 22, where everyone thought everything was going to be on the metaverse and no one made any money. So I guess it's anybody who's been in this space for a long time, the folks who worked at Magic Leap or other places, probably have some interesting experience. I mean, we started with Google Glass, we ended up with Oculus, and then Magic Leap was some sideshow on the side. Maybe they do it finally. Maybe they build. So if I'm somebody in this space and I have a thesis on Vision Pro, how would I do it? Probably be capital efficient right now.
Yes.
I would prove out product market fit, and then I'd hit the gas. And knowing this may take 12 to 24 months for this market to actually develop. And part of riding that wave that Julian's talking about is there's market risk, there's product risk, there's tech risk, there's execution risk. This
and
thing
lack
has,
of user risk as well.
that would be market risk.
Yeah, true.
So that would be market risk. So I mean, there's still a lot of market risk here. Are you inning 2, or are you inning 5, or are you inning 1? I can't call it yet. That's for the entrepreneurs out there listening.
I think, me personally, if I went back to like the days that the iPhone launched, I personally, well, and this would be a younger version of myself, but just with the price point, I would think this is just, the market's just going to be too small. And like, even if you start, like, companies need to build on it, and you could go and make yourself like a developer and join them, and then make your own company potentially or something like that. I just think we're too far away from that right now to really spend your time.
I'll make $1,000 bet with you right now.
Okay.
$1 billion Vision Pro company in 5 years. I'll just make the bet.
I would take 3 years, no question.
Well,
Kevin, I bet you.
Wait.
Yeah.
Are we betting? Are we betting revenue or valuation? Because Magic Leap was valued at more than that.
There's within 5 years has to be valuation. Yeah, it's just
$1,000.
Come on,
I'm not taking that
put your
bet.
money
I
where
mean, Apple
your mouth is.
will, like, you
I'm not
also
taking that bet.
have like the fact that Apple wants companies to succeed. So I think
Kevin,
there's
I got a wedding to pay
just
for.
like,
Come on.
they're going to want people to develop for this platform.
Come on, Kevin.
The
put
only
your money where your mouth is.
My mouth is not
Shoot
here.
off on the internet, dude.
I think that
There's always
very
someone
likely
talking
that there's
shit on the internet.
very likely a company will be valued at over $1 billion, but they will be making probably like $20 million in revenue. And so are
you taking the bet or
I'm not valuation bet.
All
Valuation, like when $1 trillion company is backing you, like the valuation is meaningless. But
Exactly.
I don't
That's
think,
my exact
I
point.
don't think this is going to be a mainstream consumer product in the next 3 years. Like I just don't see it. It's just way too early. So I would advise founders, do not, like, unless you have an incredibly strong thesis on your own about something you're building for this platform, I wouldn't do it. There's been way too many false starts in like AR, VR, it doesn't feel like it's ready for
I mean,
prime time.
look, I'm a Canadian who loves America in some elements more than the average Canadian does. Okay, and Warren Buffett has the slide. I think during the last downturn, whenever there's going to be a recession, he's got this one slide, or Charlie Munger or somebody, and the whole slide is just never bet against America. This is Warren Buffett on the left, the slide on the right, never bet against America. And I see, you're not betting on individual achievement. You're betting on people trying to get rich off a thing. And when you get a lot of people trying to get rich off a thing, some people are definitely going to find a way to make it work, and we can't predict what it's going to look like. You know what I mean? Human ingenuity is powerful. It's the reason we're even fucking here.
Yeah, I think we're just a little too early, and the price point's too high. It's going to have to come way down, and the form factors. And if anything, like, we've had Facebook working on this for the last, has it been a decade, or has Oculus been around for 15 years now?
Less.
A decade?
I think it's less.
I mean,
So-
I still haven't seen one of these in the wild. I've seen like friends post that they're using it, but I haven't seen one out and about. And I, live in the heart of Silicon Valley. So like, it seems like there's a lot of hype right now, but how many people actually own one of these?
You supposed to take it out of your house? That's the better question. Like, are you supposed to be driving with it on?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
I don't think so.
like it'd be really hard to be mainstream if it's something that's like left in your home.
Well, I mean, your TV is left in your home.
Yeah. And that's
TV's
like
mainstream.
TVs are like the biggest there's not like a special technology. It's like everyone has the same thing.
So somebody said to me last night, somebody compared it to me to the PC. So like, remember 1983, 1985, we were all children. I remember my dad going out and buying the first IBM PC with like a floppy disk drive that no one knew what you could do on it. It had like a DOS.
That was like 1995.
No, that was 1985.
Depends on the type of disc.
Yeah. Like
I don't
5 and a
people
quarter.
do not buy. I mean, I don't know what your dad was an extremely early adopter buying a PC for the home in 1985.
Yeah. We have the original IBM at home. We had it.
We had one of the first computers, and that was in 1995 or 1990. 1995, everyone was on AOL.
This is way before AOL. This is like, you couldn't do anything. You didn't have a modem. The question was, what do you do it? And so this is like early days of Apple, the hobbyists, when IBM is selling this standalone PC for $5,000. And that's $5,000 inflation, pre-inflation adjustment. And that's what Vision Pro feels like right now. The market ended up developing around it. It took 3 to 5 years. And yeah, there were a lot of billion-dollar...
No, it took more than 3 to 5 years from that to be mainstream, that everyone had it in their house, and there was...
Not mainstream, just the market starts. And so
Perfect.
that's where I feel like this is probably the closest thing that we're going to. It doesn't feel like the iPhone, but I'm still going back to why Kevin won't bet us $1,000.
Yeah, I'm
Because
still
I
on
think
that
there's
too.
going to be the magic leaps that are able to wow investors with like these crazy applications, or that's also the reason why I think the same thing for crypto. I just don't see the real value in it. But that doesn't mean that you can't build like $1 billion
it's so easy
company
to
off
get
of
valued
it.
at $1 billion.
Yeah, evaluation means meaningless.
funny money.
Okay,
Anyways,
how about a $1 billion exit within 5 years?
I definitely no, I'm still not doing that because there's companies out there, just like how Oculus was sold literally for $1 billion, right? And like it just doesn't matter. It's strategic. They have funds. They're betting on the future. They don't know exactly what's going to happen. Anyways, I think we've been on this topic for a while here. Let's wrap it up. And the way that we wanted to wrap this episode up, given that our last episode was our 50K episode, why don't we go around the group and kind of ask who do you want, you guys? What are your dream people to get on here, and and how are we going to be able to get them on?
Oh God.
I want Sam Altman.
Good
That's who I
one.
want on our podcast. I want Sam Altman. So who here has the YC hook to get him on?
I don't.
That's who I would like.
It sounds like Nikita Beer is already on it, and that's what a lot of
He's
people would love to.
He's
Yeah.
committed. I
Yeah,
DM'd him.
committed.
Yeah.
Okay. What you need is crazier shit talkers than even that. Is that even
Yeah.
possible?
I
Who
don't
do you
know.
want, Julian?
I don't know. Let me think. I mean, obviously the founders of FanDuel, since this show is sponsored by FanDuel now, isn't it?
If only Kevin would take the bet.
I'm trying to close this round. I don't
Please
have any
gamble
more time.
responsibly, folks.
Mine would be Brian Chesky, and
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's good.
and I know him, and I've already emailed him, so I'll keep going at him just like I did for Aaron.
Cold email works, everyone. It works.
Sarah, who do you want?
Taylor Swift.
Oh man,
Ooh.
Gotta be tough.
That's gonna
Or
be
if we
tough.
can't get her, maybe one of the Kelsey brothers.
I think that's actually doable.
Yeah, they do. They have their own.
They have a really good
podcasts, yeah.
podcast that I listen to. I'm obviously a huge fan of Jason Kelsey, the lesser known but more important Kelsey brother. So I think we could make it happen, and we could, pump their podcast and bring all the founders to them. I think we could get connected there.
I love
I feel
it.
like Jason Kelsey is a get. I feel like somebody in our audience should be able to get us to him.
Yeah,
And first, I have to say, I'm not an Eagles fan. So let's be very clear there, Sarah. We know you are, but I would love to have him on.
all right. Well, let's end the show with that, and thanks everybody for listening. And as if you want to help us out, grow it even more, like, subscribe. So we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts. Hitting that subscribe button, you'll get notified when we have a new show. And thanks everybody for listening.
Sarah,
See everybody.
book you on intro right after this.
Oh yeah. Do it.
And I'm sure lots of other people will. See
Yeah.
ya.
All right. Bye.